In Vero Beach, Florida in July 2006, an elderly woman was murdered in her home in a callous attack. The woman was 87-year-old Helen Regine Copeland McPherson. She was born in Old Bluff Township, Arkansas, and lived in Vero Beach for 60 years. She was a homemaker and a member of the First Baptist Church. She became a widow in the year 2000. On the night before she died on July 14, 2006, Helen's son and daughter-in-law took her out to a dinner at Swenson's, an ice cream parlor and sandwich burger restaurant on US 1 in Vero Beach. Afterwards, they went to her home and watched television and left around 8:40 p.m. The next day, on July 15, 2006, a neighbor called the couple because she saw a screen missing from Helen's door. The couple attempted to call Helen at 5:45 p.m., which was unsuccessful. They then returned to her home to check up on her, and at about 6 p.m. they found Helen's lifeless body in her bedroom, lying against the wall with blood on her face. After a medical examination of Helen's body, it was revealed Helen McPherson had several injuries from different parts of her body from being strangled. She had also been bludgeoned to death with a blunt, sharp-edged item. The investigators described the elderly woman's death among the most vicious they've ever seen. Detective Todd Finnegan said there was no indication of manual strangulation with hands, and no gunshots or stab wounds were on Helen's body. Helen had been beaten with an unknown object. Investigators said she was not sexually assaulted and nothing was missing from the home to indicate a robbery. There was signs of forced entry, and 10 days prior to the killing there was an attempted break-in, which was not reported by Helen. The exact cause of death was not revealed. Nearly 5 years had passed, and Helen's case still remained unsolved, and in June 2011, Helen's case was going to be featured on America's Most Wanted in order for her case to gain more attention.
An elderly woman was beaten to death in 2006. Investigators hope a national TV show that will soon go off the air will help them find the clues they need to solve the crime. Meredith McDonough has live coverage from Vero Beach. Mayor?
Tiffany, detectives say they want to bring more publicity to the murder investigation of 86-year-old Helen McPherson. Detectives say that she was murdered right here in her home back in 2006, and to this day there is still no suspect. July 15, 2006, when Helen McPherson was found dead in her Vero Beach home. Deputies say she was beaten and strangled. The night before McPherson's murder, she had dinner with her son Doug. He was the one who found her in a pool of blood.
You don't forget it. There's no way you can forget stuff like that. There's just no way. Being she was 86 years old, none of us can really figure out why they didn't just lock her in the closet or do something. Why they have to do what they did to her.
The Indian River County Sheriff's Office refuses to call this a cold case.
For it to be cold, we would have had to run out of investigative leads, and we're not sure that we've run out of investigative leads. We're still constantly looking for new ones.
For 5 years, detectives, the FBI, and FDLE have gone over and over this case, searching for new clues that could lead to McPherson's killer. Her picture even hangs as a reminder that this case is not closed. With the anniversary of McPherson's murder approaching, detectives say they plan on re-interviewing family, friends, and neighbors.
We're hoping with technology, that's why we keep resubmitting evidence in the case, because evidence that was submitted 5 years ago could be viewed with new technology now and may give us a suspect or a lead.
Investigators believe someone broke into McPherson's home through the carport door, but nothing was stolen. This case will even be featured on America's Most Wanted on June 4th.
I'm hoping, naturally, like everybody else, I'm hoping that it really makes a difference to the person that was out there, that maybe he might turn himself in if we're lucky enough, or something comes up, some clues or something from some neighbors or somebody down that's seen it or knows what's going on.
And investigators say they are not giving up on this case. There is no closure for the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, the family, or friends of Helen McPherson. If you have any information, you have to contact the Indian River County Sheriff's Office.
In September 2011, a man who was connected to 4 unsolved murders which occurred in Florida in 1992 was looked into by investigators. The man's name was Curtis Huff Jr. from Vero Beach. In 1993, he was involved in a botched robbery and aggravated assault, which he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for. He was eligible for parole after 10 years and left prison after serving 12 years. Upon release from prison in 2005, he moved to 5825 22nd Street in Vero Beach. The address is approximately 1 mile from Helen McPherson's residence and is located just north of Target and across the street from the Ryanwood Shopping Center. Helen McPherson frequented both of those locations. Curtis Huff Jr. is connected to 4 unsolved murders, and 3 of the victims had blunt force trauma injuries to the head. Homicide by blunt force trauma to the head is fairly uncommon. Curtis Huff Jr.'s prints were compared to partial prints found at the Helen McPherson crime scene, and they were not a match. Regardless of the fingerprint analysis, Huff was still considered a person of interest in McPherson's case. 8 years had passed since Helen's death, and in 2014, investigators were still looking for information such as new tips and had vowed to solve the case. A reward was offered to anyone with any vital information which could help the investigators find the suspect.
Murder of a Vero Beach grandmother haunts a family and the sheriff's detectives who vow to never give up in the search for her killer.
News Channel 5's Elizabeth Harrington is part of the largest news team on the Treasure Coast. She joins us live from Vero Beach. Elizabeth.
Helen McPherson's family thought she was safe in this neighborhood. She lived at this house, but what happened inside 8 years ago is still a mystery. This is where Helen Regine McPherson was last seen alive.
We just want justice. We want to know why.
It's a question her family has been asking for 8 years.
It's constantly on my mind.
McPherson's daughter-in-law Wanda and her son Doug remember the night of July 14th, 2006. They went out to dinner, watched TV at her house in Vero Beach, and then left around 8:30.
Like always, I said, just be sure and lock your door. You know, we'll see you later.
The next day, the couple went to the house to check on Helen.
A mess in the room. You know, things were turned upside down, and she was lying against the wall, and there was blood on her face.
Investigators say the 86-year-old was beaten and strangled. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office has had dozens of officers on the case, but so far, no arrests.
Which would give us some relief.
McPherson is never far from investigators' minds. Captain Darren Jones sees her picture every day.
She was somebody's grandmother, and I have a grandmother.
The Sheriff's Office says it's not a cold case. They're still actively working on it, hoping for a break.
It's my neighborhood. So when this heinous crime occurred, it hits home for me.
Sheriff Darrell Lohr has vowed to find the person who murdered Helen. He says they won't rest until the killer is locked up.
This is high on our list, the highest on our list.
Every year, her family pays for this ad in the local newspaper. It's a reminder of what happened to Helen, but also a plea to somebody out there to call with information. There is a reward being offered. If you do have information, you can call the Treasure Coast Crime Stoppers. That number is 1-800-273-8477.
In 2016, 10 years after Helen McPherson was found murdered in her home, old evidence from the crime scene was retested with updated DNA technology. Investigators apparently also had acquired information regarding a potential suspect.
Well, it's been 10 years now. It's the anniversary of Helen Regine McPherson's murder, and it's been a long 10 years. But the Sheriff's Department's working on the lead, and he's got evidence that he's checking into. So we're very hopeful with this update that pretty soon we will be coming to a conclusion and having a little peace with this particular case. We do think about this every day, and it would just give us peace of mind to know that things are going to get wrapped up real quick.
On July 14, 2023, on the 17th anniversary of Helen McPherson's murder, the Indian River County Sheriff's Office held a press conference. Sheriff Eric Flowers spoke at the conference and claimed the investigators have a person of interest.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eric Flowers, Indian River County Sheriff, and with me here I have Detective Liddell Young. We are here today to discuss the Helen McPherson case. Tomorrow is the 17-year anniversary of the death of Miss Helen McPherson. and I want to remind our community and remind the viewers and listeners that this is not a cold case to us. This is a case that we have been working since the day that that call came in. Our team, led by Detective Young here, is called the Cold Case Team. But I will tell you, the team that we have assembled does not treat these cases as being cold in any way whatsoever. We know that the technology has evolved, the technology has changed. Our cold case team every day reevaluates evidence, every single day is looking for new ways to put bad guys in jail for crimes that are still outstanding here in Indian River County. And I can tell you that we are working on a number of cases with genetic, DNA, genealogy, family trees. We know that many cases across this country have been solved using this technology. There's new touch DNA. In this particular case of Miss McPherson that happened 17 years ago, we do have a person of interest. We do have evidence in this case. That evidence is constantly reevaluated for new ways to identify suspects. And I can tell you that we will be making an arrest in this case. It is coming. So we want to warn the bad guys out there that are involved in this particular case and many of our other cases that many places call cold cases, but our team is actively working. That we're coming to get you. We've got a team of retired folks that have been working on this. We've got a team that includes our former state attorney, Bruce Colton, some judges who are still actively working. They help us, former prosecutors, and retired law enforcement from all around the country that are participating in this program. And we feel as though we are on the cusp of making many arrests. But I can tell you we're at least closing some of these cases. There'll be some where, unfortunately, the perpetrators have died or passed on. But in this particular case of Mrs. McPherson, which, again, the 17-year anniversary is tomorrow, we are confident that our team is on the right track and that new technology is helping us every single day. With that, I'll take questions from the press.
Can we talk about what any new findings have been over the last few years since the last update on this?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we're here to talk about today is that it's been 17 years. Tomorrow is the 17-year anniversary. Our evidence is constantly reevaluated and looked at. We have processed it over the years, and again, as this technology grows and evolves, we know that we're on the cusp of closing some of these cases. We're very close on many of them, and just the fact that tomorrow is that anniversary is really what brings us here today. Our cold case team has been working in the background, in the shadows. They're knocking on doors, they're talking to suspects, they're talking to persons of interest, and we want them to know that their days are numbered. There's no doubt about that, and so there's a bigger picture to this. Obviously, the idea that tomorrow is the 17-year anniversary, we wanted to bring light to that. We wanted to shed light on that and remind our community that we've not given up on Mrs. McPherson. We invited her family to be here. Of course, they're getting older, and they always come out to our victims' vigils. They always come out to our events to remember Miss McPherson, and I love seeing Wanda and Doug. They're wonderful people. We think about them every day when we come to the office. Detective Young, he's committed to running this cold case team, and he's got her picture up on the wall. We all have this picture around the agency, around the building. We've had it on our desks at one point or another, and we think about these families all the time. And so 17 years in, it's a long time to wait for justice, but we know that we're capable of bringing it, and we want those bad guys to know that their days are numbered.
Anything you can, in terms of the person of interest, any sort of identification, any sort of descriptors, anything like that?
I'm confident that the person of interest knows exactly who they are. We've spent enough time with these folks, and it's not just in this case. We've got persons of interest in almost every single one of our cold cases. Some of them, like I said, are deceased, and we're trying to close some of those cases out and bring justice for some of those families. But in this particular case, I can't get into the details of the person of interest, but I can tell you that they know that we're hot on their heels.
For those who weren't around or aren't completely familiar with the facts of the case, can you just go over generally what occurred on July 15th?
Yeah, fantastic, Will. I will tell you that we received a 911 call. We went to the residence where Mrs. McPherson was found brutally murdered. I can't really give away all the details of her murder because there are things that only the killer knows, that we've kept secret for 17 years, that we have not talked about in public. And I can tell you, she was brutally murdered inside that house. She was an elderly woman. Her and her family had gone to Swenson's, which is no longer here. It was a great restaurant, ice cream place in Indian River County, no longer here. And after that night and that great dinner that they had with her, somebody came in that house and killed her and just absolutely, ransacked the house. It's a terrible crime that has occurred in Indian River County, and we want to remind both her family on the 17th anniversary and our community that we're committed to this case.
Can you talk more about the updated technology that you all are using?
Yeah, absolutely. We're working with our partners at a variety of different crime labs. I can't get into specific cases, but I can tell you that we're able to now, beyond just touch DNA, we're able to work with our partners to essentially vacuum out DNA from a variety of different items that we couldn't recover DNA from before. There's so much great technology. People are using 23andMe and these other genealogy, family tree type things. Those companies have been working with law enforcement across the country. They've been working with a variety of databases. And when we get those strands of DNA, we're able to trace it back and figure out who these people are, whereas before we would have had unknown DNA sequences. Now we're tracking it down through family members, and so I'm excited. I'm excited for our team. This came about as a result of our agency recognizing that there's a number of cases that still can be closed, still can be solved, and we can find justice for. And so we've put a lot of effort and time into this. Detective Young, his team is incredible. They meet regularly. They talk about these cases. We've presented them to a number of other organizations that work on these types of cases. They all have interest in it. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we have to give them credit. They've been awesome with us as well. Their DNA labs are fantastic. We also work with private DNA labs, and all those groups are just working to help us solve these crimes. So I'm excited about what we're doing with cold cases, and here on the 17th anniversary of Miss McPherson's death, we want to bring justice for her and so many other families.
And who was she survived by?
Doug and Wanda McPherson are here. She's got many other family members in town, and at a variety of times we've talked with them and spoken to them. But specifically Doug and Wanda, they show up to all those events. Every time I see them, I always tell them we're still working the case, and we've never given up in 17 years. I was here when this case came out. I had just been transferred to our undercover drug unit, and it would have been my squad. It would have been my zone that I responded to, and so this one's been particularly personal for me. Over the years, we developed a task force. I think it was back in 2008. I was on that task force. We've done so many different things on this case, and so the evidence is just coming together. And here on the 17th anniversary of her death, we want the bad guys to know. We want our community to know we've not given up.
Was she a grandmother, and did she live alone?
She was a grandmother. She lived alone in that house. She was a tough lady. The family knew that if somebody came in the house, she was going to put up a fight, and I'll tell you, she did. She absolutely did. And we want that bad guy to know that we know that she put up a fight, and we want to know that his days are numbered.
Who made the initial notification to law enforcement? I guess evidently that she was discovered, or
yeah, I believe it was a family that went to visit her. They hadn't heard from her, and they went to check on her, and that's when they found the scene and called 911 immediately. And so our team responded right away. It was an afternoon, right around shift change kind of thing, 6 o'clock, that we got that call. They had taken her to dinner the night before, then didn't hear from her the entire next day, and so they went there to check on her, and that's what prompted the call to us.
Mm-hmm. Sheriff, you mentioned that you've been hot on the trail now on the suspect. Mm-hmm. When did you guys start getting hot on the trail? When did you start saying this person is probably that guy?
We started canvassing that neighborhood the week that this case came out, and we haven't stopped since. We've been tracking folks, we've been working things, and we're committed, and we've done many things over the years, but there's still more to be done. This case isn't over yet. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Thank you guys for coming up today. I really appreciate it. Again, 17 years is a long time for this family to wait, but we're confident that we're going to get there. Thank you. You're sweating.